Hey, Ellen. It's Cary Broussard here with the Cinderella CEO On Air podcast interview, and I'm so excited that you're with us today. You are one of my,
Well, and it's great to see you, Carrie.
well, thank you. I know it's like, okay, are you in Wisconsin today? Where are you?
Yes, I am.
And I know you're getting ready for a big conference coming up, Accelerate 2020, of which I'll be a speaker, and that'll be November 12th through the 13th. I'm going to give you give our audience a quick overview of what you do because I'm teasing them by talking about your conference before I've introduced you. But I want to make sure this audience knows you not only have won and are the winner of the first Cinderella CEO Awards, the grand prize winner. But you are the winner of the grand prize of the Cinderella CEO Awards because you impressed the heck out of our judges and our audience because you started an association called Women in Trucking in 2007, I think, was the date that you started Women in Trucking, which I am so fascinated by the fact that one, women are attracted to the trucking industry. I was at your conference last year, and I can totally see why. I actually stepped up into the rig, if you will, of one of your trucks, and it was so cool. I felt like, hey, I think I'm really cool when I'm sitting high up in a Land Rover or something, but to be in a truck is awesome. But it's really all about women in transportation, and you're the Women in Trucking I guess the description, your mission is to create innovative improvements to the workplace for women in trucking, and so that they can achieve their career goals as well as work-life balance for all genders. So it's not just about women, it's also about men in the trucking industry and making the industry better for everybody. And so now here we are, and I want you to talk a little bit more and give a better description than I did. But having started this organization, and then now we're up against, here we are in 2020, and probably transportation and the trucking industry is more important than ever. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And it's got to be one of those industries that I, in particular, had never really thought of because I just took it for granted. But what's happening now with Cinderella to CEO, when we've shortened our brand to C2CEO, we conducted research in March of this year to find out what women leaders across the country were dealing with, not only in the pandemic, but the 200 nominees for the Cinderella to CEO Awards were so amazing in how they know and have learned to overcome obstacles, you being the ultimate one who has done this. But what we found out is that these women leaders, all of them very successful, they're also willing to look at opportunities outside their existing industry. As a matter of fact, 68% of them said they would be interested in even changing industries. So it's those transferable skills. If we're looking at the industry and the economy now, how is trucking and transportation doing? What is it? What's going on in the industry right now?
Well, first of all, Carrie, thank you so much. And I can't tell you how honored I was to be the very first inaugural Cinderella to CEO award recipient. It's just been amazing. And looking at the list of women who were nominated, I am very humbled by the fact that I was selected by the judges because there were some pretty incredible women on that list. And
Incredible.
so let me just talk a little bit. So let me, I want to reiterate the mission of Women in Trucking, and it's threefold. And I'm glad you said that we're not necessarily for women, we're about women. So we are a nonprofit organization, a professional trade organization with over 5,000 members in 10 countries.
Wow.
And we were formed in March of 2007. And basically, it's to increase the percentage of women employed in the trucking industry and to address obstacles that might keep women from either entering or succeeding. And the third part is to celebrate success. That means tell their stories. And you made a good point about 68% of women saying that they're willing to change industries, because when I go to a trucking or a supply chain event, I typically ask the female leaders, how many of you in high school or college said that you wanted to work in transportation? Rarely does someone raise their hand. So we all come into this industry, myself included, as a secondary choice or maybe a third or whatever, but then we stay because there's something about the trucking industry. And you also mentioned that, people don't really think about the trucking industry. So when a truck is going on the road and operating in a safe manner, it's kind of invisible. You only notice it if there's something bad or an accident or whatever. So we are kind of the invisible,
Backbone.
crucial part. Exactly. So, but during the pandemic, our drivers were out there, and they were out there delivering toilet paper, supplies, groceries, and they were on the front lines. And so many of our drivers, both men and women, knew that they were being potentially exposed to a virus. And yet, what did we do? Some states shut down their way stations, their rest areas, so that our drivers didn't even have a place to sleep or use a restroom. And then all the sit down dining was closed. So drivers didn't have access to healthy food, and they couldn't go through a drive-through because you can't take a tractor trailer through there. So, and then they couldn't find the PPE, they couldn't find masks, they couldn't find ways to clean their trucks and gloves and things like that. So they were out there doing their job, the invisible heroes, who kept the economy running. So my heart just explodes with pride for our industry, because it is such a vital part of the economy.
Absolutely. And so when you talk about the fact that, your career path, and you hadn't really thought that you would get into the trucking industry. I know, did you own a small fleet of trucks? How did you end up getting into trucking? And I know you got your master's in communication, and you have your own radio show on Sirius XM, which I want you to talk about. But how did you end up doing this? How could somebody follow your example to get into this industry?
So it's kind of funny, because when I was in high school, my goal was broadcast journalism. So, and I'll come back around to that, but I was one of those that I had a mom who said I could do anything. And so back in the 70s, girls didn't take shop class, they took home ec. And I said to my mom, I don't want to take home ec. You can teach me how to cook and clean and all that stuff. I want to learn how to do woodworking and welding and drafting and fix engines. And so I had to lobby to the school board to take shop class.
Wow.
So I got a job. I did go to broadcasting school, and I found out that unless you are way high up in the chain in broadcasting, you're not going to make any money. So I took a job at a steel fabricating plant in the drafting department. So I was drawing material handling equipment. And one day they came to me and they said, we want to move you into traffic, and we'll send you to school for traffic and transportation management.
Wow.
That's how I got my career started in the transportation industry. They came to me. It didn't occur to me to go work in the transportation industry.
And
because of that training,
that's fantastic that somebody was looking after you, saw you, that's where great teachers and mentors and sponsors come in. Somebody saw that in you.
They saw something. Right. So that gave me the skills. And then when I started, so I worked for the steel fabricating organization. I was the assistant traffic manager, was promoted to traffic manager. And then when I started my family, I used my training and I did consulting for 18 years while I raised my two children. And I was married to an owner operator. We had a small fleet.
That's right.
But during that time, while I was consulting, that's when I went back to college and got my bachelor's and my master's in communication. And as you mentioned, my master's thesis is the complex identities of women married to professional drivers, because when they're gone a lot, you're one person when they're home and you're another person when they're away. So I did my research on that. So I've been in the trucking industry since I was 19 years old.
So interesting. And that is I think, a pivotal point that ended up, I think, impressing the judges of the Cinderella to CEO Awards is, and you haven't mentioned that you're also a pilot, right? You have your pilot license. Uh, you fly, right?
Yeah, and that kind of plays. I do, and that plays into how I started Women in Trucking, because I was working for a large trucking company. We had 14,000 trucks, and I was the manager of retention and recruiting programs. And they said, figure out how to attract and retain non-traditional groups. And that included women. And at the time I was getting my pilot's license, and I belonged to an organization for female pilots. And it struck me, why isn't there an organization for women in the trucking industry? So in March of 2007, our first board meeting, got the bylaws drawn up, put together a board of directors, and we were born in March of 2007. And it's grown beyond my wildest imagination, believe me.
Wow. What do you think it is that keeps you driven? Ha ha ha. Hate to use, I'm sure you hear that a lot, right? A trucking term, but keeps driving you, again, using it again, to one, be successful, and two, not to give up. And that's a pretty daunting task that you took on to open up the trucking industry for women. H- how do you
Well,
keep
I'm
it
seeing
going?
progress.
You see progress,
I'm
incremental
seeing
progress.
progress, and right, the number of women drivers, the number of women technicians, the number of women in CEO positions, the number of women who serve on boards of the publicly traded trucking companies, all of those are good metrics. But also, how many members do we have at Women in Trucking? As like I said, over 5,000 in 10 countries. And also another a huge difference that I know that our organization has brought to the industry is 13 years ago, I would talk to trucking company executives and I'd say, you need to hire more women. And they'd say, oh, Ellen, we just hire the best person. We don't care about their age, their ethnicity, or their gender. We just want a good driver. And I'd say to them, really? Well, guess what? Your uniforms are meant for men. You don't even have restrooms for women. The trucks are built for men. You think there's a level playing field? I'm going to point out to you that it's not.
Wow.
And that's when the industry started saying, oh, okay, so how do we make it a level playing field?
And what have been the benefits for the trucking industry, transportation industry to have more women truck drivers or logistics operators? What has been the benefit? Have
Well,
profits gone up?
so let's talk. Since we represent all women in the industry, I'm going to talk about drivers first.
Okay.
In the past, organizations didn't break down any of their data by gender, and so I started pressuring them to do that. So last year, the American Transportation Research Institute came out with their crash causation study and found that men are 20% more likely to be involved in a crash in every statistically significant area in commercial motor vehicles. So the first thing, more women make our roads safer.
Wow.
So that's huge.
Huge.
Also, women are better with the equipment, better with customers, easier to train. So what women bring to the industry is actually, in many cases, they're a much better driver than their male counterparts.
Interesting.
But
I'm
in the
not
leadership
surprised.
area, women are women are risk averse. So that's the kind of person you want in your truck, right? But also in the boardroom, when decisions are being made and women are more risk averse, they're going to ask a lot more questions. So, if someone says, well, let's acquire this company, or let's make this purchase, or whatever, women are going to say, whoa, let's not take any risks here. Let's ask a lot of questions and let's do the decision-making process. So women do bring a different perspective, and women are more collaborative and team-oriented as well. So being risk-averse creates a different culture in an organization.
Wow. I think of all the arguments and the statistics that I've heard with regard to an industry or just the economy, that makes so much sense. Applying the risk averse safety issue to women in the trucking industry or in transportation. And then I can envision women training women and men from that perspective and how that also is such a benefit for the industry overall. So I have heard recently the
Yes,
term,
so much so.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's again part of your vision of you've created and implemented. So I've heard the term recently, transportation mobility. And I've heard that from the car industry or read it in the car industry genre, I guess, or industry. So when I attended your conference last year in Dallas, it was just so cool to be around all the young women, women of all ages, me included, that were just interested in like, I want to know more about this industry. And I met a lot of women and I met a lot of men, but in particular, I met women who were in logistics and could you describe what that entails? I know we talked about the trucker, the drivers. What about logistics?
So logistics is more the getting something from point A to point B and deciding how that's done. So a logistics company might not have trucks. They might or they might not. And so you might call them and say, I need a truck. And they might have, 100 carriers that they work with, and they're going to find the right truck, the right equipment, the right route. So that's what it's a logistics provider kind of helps you. They're kind of the matchmaker, if you will,
Yeah.
like the dating service, or we're going to match this one with that one because they have the same, their needs
Right.
over and match.
I love it. We can identify with that. Matchmaking. Well, and I think that to me, ties into the technology. If somebody has transferable skills and they're looking at the industry as a whole of transportation, is the future of transportation in the technology side of things? Is it something? Is it an industry that people could enter at any age or at any experience level?
I'm so glad you said that. There are so many opportunities in transportation, and technology is just one part of it. The technology has advanced so much. In fact, people have probably heard of driverless vehicles,
Yes.
well, or autonomous vehicles. Um, I don't think you're going to see a truck going down the road without someone at the wheel in the very near future. I think you will in the distant future, but not yet. But the autonomous vehicles are bringing all kinds of technology. They're bringing lidar, radar, their anti-rollover mechanisms, lane departure warnings, collision avoidance systems, things like that. So all of the technology makes not only the trucks safer, but our roads safer. So we're
Yeah.
all for the technology. But as far as jobs, Cary, when people, we have everything in the trucking industry from, technicians, and women make great diesel mechanics because guess what? All the technology on a diesel engine, it used to be cranking wrenches, not anymore. It's women's hands actually fit in the parts of a diesel engine better so that they can reach things. So it's not about lifting engines anymore or turning cranks. It's technology.
Wow.
Um, and same with the opportunities for dispatchers. Women make great dispatchers. Women make great safety directors. Women make great, leaders in all levels of the industry. And so the industry really has been embracing what women bring to the table. And talk about diversity. The companies are hiring diversity experts to make sure that they have a more diverse workforce at all levels.
So, if somebody were interested in finding out more about how this industry might be attractive to them. Is your conference a way, one, I want you to give your website address, but would attending your conference, whether this year or another year, be a good idea for somebody that's not already in the
Absolutely.
industry?
And so I believe that the reason our conference is so successful, and last year you were there, we had 1,100 registered attendees, and it was only our 5th year.
Wow.
But the content, even though it's called Women in Trucking, the content are things like branding yourself, communication styles, how to be a better negotiator, things like that. Anyone, male, female, doesn't matter what industry you're in, can benefit from the speakers such as yourself because they're going to learn from women leaders. And this year's lineup is just amazing as well. We've got women, authors and women from the military, and we've got Secretary Chow, who's Secretary of Transportation, and she's our keynote. So
Wow, that's great.
there's something for everyone.
Congratulations. That's a big deal to get her as your keynote. And this year will be virtual. So anybody can go to the website. Tell me again the website address.
It's womenintrucking.org, womenintrucking.org, and you spell out women in trucking.
Okay.
And also, Cary, you asked about my radio show.
Yes.
So when I said that in high school I wanted broadcast journalism, about 3 years ago, I had been a guest on Sirius XM's Road Dog Trucking Channel. It's the trucking channel for drivers. I had been a guest for years. And they came to me and they said, we think you should have your own show. And so Saturday mornings from 10 Central till noon, every Saturday, I have the Women in Trucking show on Sirius XM Road Dog Trucking. And it's very interesting because we have different topics. And a couple weeks ago, it was totally a call-in show on what drivers were dealing with COVID-19. And the phones just lit up. And it was probably one of the most I don't want to say fun because I'm hearing how their challenges are, but one of the most revealing and exciting shows that I've done. So you never know what you're going to hear on that show.
I'm so glad you said that because I'm assuming truck drivers are tuning in and listening while they're on the road. But it was interesting because I remember the first time I heard about your show, because of course you didn't brag about it or weren't at the awards to promote your show. And so I actually didn't know much about it. I do want to ask you about the doll, but I want to come back to that in a minute. But my friend Meg Wallace, who's with Toyota, was listening to your show after she is in Michigan, and she and her husband listen to your show all the time. And she had texted me, "Get on Sirius XM. Ellen's hosting her show." And so it's, people all over are listening to it, especially people interested in transportation and cars, and you've got so many interesting guests. But one of the things I do remember from the awards, after you told your story, that was a standing ovation from this crowd in New York, just in raptured by your story and what you've done. And you brought the audience to tears. I think the audience brought you to tears. But one of the things that I thought was so adorable was you also, and it was just kind of a point of difference, that you came up with a doll that people can also buy. It was with the holidays coming up. Tell me about the doll again. It's so cool. You have one. Can I buy it, and where can I buy it? Look at her.
Oh, you can buy it on our website. This is Claire. She's a truck driver doll. She's got a little Women in Trucking hat on. And she got blinged. Remember at our conference last year, we had someone blinging people. So Claire is available on our website. And the box tells a story about how she goes to truck driving school and gets her CDLs. So we did that because I wanted children to have a toy to play with that is about the trucking industry, because they didn't. So boys and girls can play with that doll.
You have such a great way of finding out where there's a niche and where there's an opportunity. And Claire, the trucking doll, is perfect. And I think, even when their parents are away, they have a doll to play with. And whether your parent is traveling or whether or not you wish to travel again one day, like we all do, hey, probably truckers are the one group of people now that actually get to travel. So, hey, get in there, people.
Well, can I mention something else, Cary?
I wish you
We
would.
also, we, when I found out that the Boy Scouts had a transportation patch, and I went to the Girl Scouts and they didn't have a transportation patch. So we worked with the Greater Chicago, Northern Indiana Girl Scout region and created the curriculum for a Girl Scout supply chain patch. And it's called Trucks Are for Girls. And over 1,100 girls have already earned that patch. Of course, we've been slowed down by the pandemic, but trucking companies, schools, and dealerships have held Girl Scout events and brought Girl Scouts in and taught them about supply chain.
That is so cool. And I wish I could go back and do certain things over again. One, be a Girl Scout. I think, it's just, I was a brownie and then ended up not going into Girl Scouts, but how cool the Girl Scouts just gets better and better. And I would definitely want to earn that patch. What else would you like to talk about, Ellen? Because I could talk to you all day. You just keep impressing me and motivating me to want to do more and be the best I can be. Like I think the audience feels as we're talking to you. You don't give up. You just keep pushing the boundaries in a good way, in a positive way for other people. So thank you for that.
Well, and I want to thank you, Cary. And I love my kaleidoscope. And I thought that was so innovative to give the winners kaleidoscopes for looking at the world in a different way. And this is a reminder that I've always been the kind of person who sees the world in a different way and tries to change the world to make it better. And by bringing more women into the trucking industry and offering career opportunities for women in supply chain, I see the industry changing in such a positive way. And down the road, literally, we are making a difference. So thank you so much I, again, was so honored to be the inaugural Cinderella to CEO award winner. And I look forward to the next person who I can hand my crown over to.
Absolutely. You wear the crown so well, to take a quote from you, you wear the crown well. And in 2021, we will have an opportunity again to take nominations. We were going to launch the awards in 2020, and we just thought, let's wait one more year to hopefully get a lot of things under control, right? So in 2021, we will absolutely have you be part of the awards, Ellen. And if people now want to go to read more about the awards, they can go to CinderellaCEOAwards.com, where we have all the pictures from the awards in New York that were held in New York, and things that you might want to find out more about anybody who has been nominated. The nomination form is still up on the website, and we will stay in touch with people through Cinderella CEO On Air, our podcast, with interviews with people like Ellen, who are headlining this as the grand prize award winner for Cinderella CEO Awards, but other CEOs who motivate us, especially during this time when not everybody knows what the future will hold. But I think what Ellen has proven to us today is that, we have a hand in developing and guiding what the future will be like. We don't have to sit back and let somebody else decide it for us. And it's time, especially for women now, who have, we've overcome obstacles that we didn't know were ever possible to overcome, and we've done it. So, hey, what's one more? We can do it. We can get there together. So, Ellen, I'll see you at your conference, your virtual conference. And if people want to go on now, whatever industry they're in, they can go to womenintrucking.org and find out about what the industry is all about, but also possibly participate in the conference coming up in November 12th, 13th. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Cary.
You're welcome, Ellen. Thanks.